Good morning. Um, I know the light and the color on this particular camera are terrible. It's almost like it's black and white, except for the purple in the scarf. So I apologize. My old camera, my old computer that died on me, had a much better camera. Anyway, um, we're going to start over with the alphabet, or the aleph bet, if you're talking about it in Hebrew. And this way, if somebody new joins us later, they can go back and review all of these lessons and catch up. And this is also going to help those that just miss 1 week. And I'll try to upload them someplace where everybody can get access to them. And we were talking about, Kathy Rubin was telling me how she does live Facebook things. And maybe we'll start just recording them live at the lessons and then posting them afterward, and that way I don't have to remember and make the time to come back and do it a second time. I started to do these a long time ago with another group, and I got way behind on the videos because that extra 15 minutes or 20 minutes at another time, it just never seemed to come up. So this would hopefully be a better program if we could just record them there. Um, and I'm going to save papers from the weeks that somebody missed, and I'll leave them out there next to the songs. And if somebody wants to pick up last week's words or whatever, you're welcome to do that. Um, anyway, so we are going to go through the alphabet, or the alphabet, and we'll take several weeks to do it. Today we're going to do 4 letters. Let's see, what all did I say yesterday? Start out by explaining that there are, let's see, where's my paper with my cheat notes on it. Hope I still have it. If not, I'll just see what I remember. Okay, there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, or alphabet. I'll probably end up saying both a little bit. All of them are consonants. There are no vowels per se in the Hebrew alphabet. What they do have are things like these little dots or a line, things like that above and below the letters. And those are called nikudim, if you have more than one of them. And they are the vowel markers. They tell you how to pronounce the letter. Because it'd be like in English if we had H and T, and that was all we had. And it might be hit, it might be hat, it might be hut, it might be hate. It could be all these different possibilities. All you have is the H and the T. But if you have a vowel marker, you know, oh, this one is hot. We're talking about hot. So that's what these do. They weren't original. Way back when the Torah was first written, there weren't any vowel markings. And a group of people called the Masoretes went in thousands of years later, and using the oral tradition of the way they had always handed down the way things should have been pronounced and what the verses meant, they went in and they worked out a really ingenious set of how to do the vowels. And it won't show probably in the stuff that I'm doing, but when you learn things like, well, if you add this letter, then it goes up, the sound is a little bit broader. There's no point even going into that, but there's some ways that as you learn the vowels, it's amazing how they manage to work it all out so that things connect in a really good way. So all the letters are consonants, but sometimes the consonants act like vowels. And that's very much like our W or a Y. Like in the word rhythm, you have RHY. You do not have an I, but you have an I sound. And the Y is being used as a vowel in that case. The same thing will happen in Hebrew. First letter of the alphabet is Aleph. Pronounce it like that. And it only takes a sound of whatever vowel marking or nikud is under it. It doesn't have a sound of its own. It's a silent consonant. And if it does not have a vowel marking, which sometimes it won't, then you just have kind of a glottal stop like or uh-oh, and you have that little stop in the middle. It's not a sound, it's a glottal stop. And you'll hear that in a bunch of words, da'an, me'eh, things like that. And that's showing that there is an aleph or perhaps a different letter. It can happen with more than one. You might have that letter in there. Um, and so that's what it will do on its own. Otherwise, it takes the form of the vowel that's underneath it. And every letter has a word that's not exactly how you pronounce the letter, but is very closely associated with it. And for Aleph, that word is Elef. And I didn't get that on there. It means thousand, but it's pronounced Elef. And I don't know how well you can see this. Under these letters, there's a little like upside down triangle of dots. 1, 2, and 1 below it. Under both the Aleph, and this letter is a Lamed, and it's under there too. And that is to show that the sound is an E sound. There's another E sound called a tsere, and it's more of an A. But it's considered an E sound. Just go with it. But the S sound is one of the things that changes how you accent a word. For most words in Hebrew, the accent is either going to be on the last syllable or just before the last syllable. Like Shemaim is heaven, and we'll get to that in a minute. But it's not on the first syllable. And the im is a suffix, so you have it on the next to last syllable. But when you have it pushes the accent back to the front. So this is Elif, not Elef. And some of the other words where this comes up in is Melech for king. We say that, blessed are you, King of the universe. And if you don't know, you might say Melech. But that's not how it's pronounced. It's Melech. And if you talk about the Negev, it's not Negev, it's Negev. And that happens to be a word that means dry land. So if you say the Negev desert, it's the desert. Anyway, so so this is Elef, means thousand. The second letter is Bet, and it comes in two forms. And I'm going to call them two different letters, or say them as different letters. It's considered one. Thank you. It's considered just one, but sometimes it has this dot in the middle, and that dot is called a dogesh. In the Bet, it changes the sound of the letter. A few times it will. A few times in different letters it will. Other times you'll see the dogesh in a letter and it doesn't change anything. It often is symbolic of a doubled letter. Like the example I gave yesterday is if we have the word bet, not the Hebrew word bet, but I'll bet you're right. Our kind of bet, we have one T, but then if we talk about someone named Betty, we have two T's, but we pronounce the T the same. Nothing has changed. And that's basically what happens with most letters with the dogesh. But with the bet, if you don't have a dogesh, it becomes a V. And on the letters that do change sound, the softer sound is always going to be the one without the dogesh. So bet, and I will call this vet, like the person that works with animals. And it's really just one letter, and in modern Hebrew, there is no letter with a dogesh. They don't even have those anymore. You just have this one, and you're supposed to know if it's a B or a V sound. But, erased it. Okay. But I want, so because this is a letter that changes sound, I want to make sure you guys get that. So it's a bet and a vet. Oh, I forgot to say, Aleph. All of these things came from like a hieroglyph. It's called Paleo-Hebrew, and it's a picture, a word picture. And the Aleph used to be the head of an ox, and oxen were strong. So this indicates strength, or the one who's leading, or the one in charge. And it can also have some other meanings, but strong is basically the meaning. Now, bet, its main meaning is, well, it has two things, house or in. The word that's most closely associated with the letter bet is the word for house, and it's bayit, bayit. But in the name of our congregation, Kahilat Beit Lechem, we have bait. It's not pronounced bite, it's pronounced bait. And the difference is that this is something that you'll hear about, and it'll probably be a long time until we actually get into it, but I'll mention it over and over again up until then. This is called the construct state, and it means whatever the noun is, and then you add of on the end. So the name of our congregation is Kehilat Beit Lechem. And lechem is another one of those words that has the two segols. So it's going to be lechem, not lechem. Beit means house of. So the name of our group is, and Kehilat is also in the construct state. Kehilah is a congregation. Kehilat is congregation of. So you have the congregation of the house of bread. So that's what those things mean. Was there anything else that I wanted to go over here? Oh, in. I said that bet also can mean in. Just as a prefix, you'll find this in front of a bunch of words. And we'll get into the prefixes probably before too long. And that always means in. Well, prepositions, I'll say this a bunch of times too, they're just kind of wonky. Like, we'll say we are at school, and some other languages say they're in school, and some other languages say they're to school. And so it's hard to say, translate those prepositions exactly from language to language because they're always tweaked a little bit. But the concept is basically in or on sometimes. Anyway, so ba can be in or house. So you like in the house. And this is supposed to be a shape of the house. And you go in here. So I think that's it for Aleph or Bet. Okay, so I am going to erase this. And I apologize for taking the time to have to stop and rewrite things. And if you can't see anything, like I said, I will have... Okay, so what did I do with my pen? There's always something. May have to get a different color. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. So the next two letters are Gimel and Dalet. Okay, Gimel and Dalet. Gimel is supposed to represent a camel. In fact, that's where the English word came from, is the Hebrew word for camel, which instead of being Gimel is Gamal. Hope I didn't write too big here. And that's two. Just want to make sure I'm getting all the vowels right. And in the word gamal, which means camel, and I know we're not going over all these letters yet. You will get them eventually. In the word gamal, the gimel has a dogish. It doesn't change the sound of the G. It doesn't turn it into a J sound or anything like that. Although in modern Hebrew, and aside, a little rabbit trail, they do have the J sound, because you can, the word Jeep has translated into modern Hebrew, but they didn't have a J sound. And so what they do is they put like an apostrophe up there, and that becomes a J. Just something that you probably will never need to know. But anyway, so that's Gamal, and it means camel. And the Gimel, in a word, that letter will have something to do with camel. And the idea behind a camel is that only rich people had them. They were what were used in caravans, or if you were traveling and carrying lots of wealth, you'd load up your camels. So Gimel refers to a rich man, or riches. Ah! It can also be also, if you're sitting on a camel, you're way up above, can't see my hand, you're way up above the people down below. So if you're a rich man on a camel and you want to help someone, you have to lean way down to reach to them. So it has to do with benefiting, giving gifts, crediting, being magnanimous, all those kinds of things. So anyway, that's Gimel and Gamal. Oh, and I'll write how you say spell the letter. G-I-M-E-L. Okay, Gimel. Okay, and the next word is Dalet. Oh, I didn't even tell you what all the sounds are, did I? Okay, so I told you bet and vet. This is a G sound as far as English is concerned, and that's a D sound, like in dog. The word most closely associated with it is Dalet. And because it has the accent on the first syllable, I bet you can already tell me what the vowel markings are. 3 little circles. And I know you don't know all these letters. We will get to them. Dalet. And again, here's a Dalet, but it has a doggish in it. And it does not change the sound of the letter. And like I said, in the bet and vet, it does, but not in a lot of the other letters. But it's there. So it has a purpose. Don't worry about it right now. Anyway, this says Delet, D-E-L-E-T is how it's usually transliterated. This refers to a door, and this is the word for door. A Delet is a door. And you have an opening here, so that's like where you would go in. It can either be a door or that which hangs. So that's what the meaning of this is. Okay, so those are the 4 letters, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. Those are the 4 letters that we need to have memorized today. But we're going to go on and put some of them together. And I have not memorized the vowel markings on hardly any words. So I'm always looking back. I can read it, but when I have to write it for myself, which I've done much less of, I can never remember what they are. So my apologies for the time here. Okay, either a straight line or the little T sign. They used to be a little different, and if you go to some teachers, they will still try and pronounce them differently, but from what I have seen, and what I have seen is not the whole scope, but from what I have seen, they're usually just translated exactly the same sound. So I'm going to suggest to you guys, if there's a line at all, doesn't matter what else, sometimes you see a line and some dots. If there is a line, doesn't matter what else is with it, call it an ah sound. So the Aleph has an ah sound. Ah. There's a doggish in the bet, so that's a B. Here's another ah. Ah, ba. And there's no sound to go with this. Abba. And a lot of people say, well, that's the diminutive form of father. That's how you say daddy in Hebrew. This is not a Hebrew word. This is Aramaic. And Yeshua and his disciples were very fluent in both. You kind of went back and forth because Hebrew was still the language of the synagogues and of the holy, anything to do with holiness, the temple. But day to day, talking to your neighbors, you often spoke Aramaic. So this is